condition of feeling as if we were excluded in any way from the universe. Waking up from that like basic idea that we are alone in a dangerous world. And this, of course, the evidence is presented to us over and over again. I mean, this is a recurring theme. And the reason I always say it every Sunday, I say that at least once every Sunday, because all through the day, all through the week, every single day, we get reminders from media but not just that, from our own egos, that we're separate, that we are apart from, that we're apart from others, or we need to protect ourselves from others. We need to watch out. We need to be careful. And now, it's important that we understand that this waking up does not mean that we go into some strange denial of this experience that we are having in the world, because we really are having the experience of a dangerous world. And we're having that experience because collectively that's what we have decided upon. Now, this is another thing to feel guilty about if you want to, but there's enough stuff to feel guilty about. None of it is helpful. So the idea is that collectively, at a subconscious level, we decide to keep this world of conflict going. Now, the nice thing about this idea is that means then that if we take responsibility for it, that we can actually do something about it. And one of the things the ego does, the ego recognizes that the world is dangerous, and it uses it, it plays with the idea, but it also presents it in such a way that can get us on a mission that says, here's what you need to do. Since this is a dangerous world, you need to go out into the world and fight for justice. You need to fight for, whatever cause that seems to be, close to your mind right now. In other words, join the fray. Don't stand back on the sidelines and just observe. Join the fray. Get in there and fight for whatever it is that you think. And all of this can be done with the best of intentions. The difficulty is that, and what we will find when we do that, go out and just kind of get in the mix, is that it becomes apparent pretty quickly that we're really kind of powerless. We can make some seeming progress. But we fix one problem and then another one pops up, somewhere else. And so what the Course tells us and what the Sufis tell us and what really all of the world religions tell us is to take care of the inner problem first. And that's what this awakening that we talked about last week was about. It's about taking steps, if you will, to get to a place in consciousness where we can see that we really aren't alone. Because it is this fear of being alone, of being separate, that keeps us taking action on what we think is our own behalf. It becomes like a motivating factor in life. It's the motivating factor for many people in business. It's the motivating factor in much of the activity that goes on in the world, is the person feeling alone moves out into the world to make things happen in their own interest. Now, one of the things about this concept is when people start to examine the idea that the world that we live in is actually a group illusion, that it's group hypnosis, that we've really done this to ourselves, then there's a tendency to go totally the other way and say, well, if it's not real, I just don't have to do anything, right? Read in the Course, or even read in the Bible, where the quote says you don't have to worry about anything. He who sent you is going to take care of you, tell you what to do, what to say, all this kind of stuff. So people quit their job. People go to a restaurant, and as Ken Wapnick said in his opening, people go to the restaurant, and all of a sudden it gets very quiet, and you think perhaps they're praying before the meal, but then you realize that they're praying and wanting Holy Spirit to tell them whether they should have chicken or beef. Or should I go vegetarian? So this is a confusion of levels. What the Course is saying is, that you need to go out into the world. You need to go out in the world and do what you do all the time. So this is really where we're at today. Where we're at today is having had an awakening, just a simple idea. It's a very simple idea. I'm going to wake up to the fact that I'm not by myself. And there's a number of ways to do this. People who practice 12 steps, that's the goal, is to get to this spiritual awakening at the 12th step. And for people who are practicing the Course, the awakening is the same. And the Course actually describes it the same as a restoration to sanity, to waking up to the fact that the separation is not real. So once having had the awakening, then the question is, what do I do? And that's where we're at today. What do I do? And the title of the talk this morning was Choose Once Again. What I do is I choose again. I choose once again. Every day, all day, what I want my practice to be is I want to choose again. I have to choose between two things. There's only two things, and it can seem so complicated, but it's really very simple. There's two voices in us. There's the voice of fear, and there's the voice of love. And to choose once again is to decide to listen to the voice of love, to listen to the voice for love. They're both of these voices are contending within us for our attention. Before we wake up to the fact that we're not alone, it seems only logical to listen to the voice for fear. And what the Course calls it is you have two teachers. You decide who's going to teach you. Is the ego going to teach you? Or are you going to allow Spirit to teach you? Now, for those who aren't familiar with it, I just want to make sure I'm clear about this. We're not talking about Spirit being something outside of ourselves. We are talking about both of these voices are inside. Both of these voices are on the inside. We're not asking for some divine intervention from the outside. What we're saying here is that the divinity is already in us, that we are part of, just naturally, the way we were created, that we are part of divinity. But we have these two voices. Now we wake up from the fact, and this is interesting because intellectually it's not that hard of an idea to accept, and there's all sorts of lessons out there running around about, go out into the world and work for the common welfare and be kind but generally, the reasons that we thought about doing that before was that that's what it meant to be a good person. In other words, to be part of the proper social fabric, to be civilized, you act a certain way. But really what's going on is the ego is saying this is how you get the approval of others. This is how you get the approval of society, is to act in this manner, and then that becomes the motive. So it just turns out to be another self-centered motive. The reason we want to go out in the world and be kind is because we're not alone. Not because other people will see us being kind. We want to go out into, the reason that we want to act for the common welfare is because the common welfare is actually what's best for us too, because we're part of the common welfare. So it's a change. The awakening shifts our motivation. It shifts our intention. Everything else can remain the same. We get up in the morning, we do what we do. But our motivation changes. We get up and we start to interact maybe with people around us. And many times I know that I've gotten up in the morning and really not been in the best mood. But the civilized part of me says, well, still try to be as nice as possible. Right? And just because, and it's all, and when it's coming from that direction in me, it's just about, it's probably less trouble if I try to be a little bit nice than start a fight right away that I know I'm going to have to pay consequences for later, right? So I'm going to bite my tongue, I'm not going to, but see, when the motivation shifts, the reason I'm kind is because I want to experience kindness. The reason that I'm nice is because I realize that when I'm nice, I'm actually receiving that. Even if the other person doesn't even respond the way I want them to, I'm receiving the benefit of what I did, just participating in it. So the motivation changes from making decisions based on what's going to affect me personally to making no decisions for myself alone. Now that's, if you think about that for a second, what I'm saying is, once awake, I'm going to stop making decisions for myself alone. Because I'm not alone. That's why. So I'm going to stop making decisions for myself alone, because I'm not alone. I'm going to start making decisions based on what's best for everybody involved. And again, I'm not trying to beat this over the head, but it's really important to understand that I'm not sacrificing when I do this. I'm not making a sacrifice because I'm deciding to do what's best for everyone involved, because I'm involved. So if it's best for everyone involved, it must be best for me too. So I'm not trying to cheat myself out of something so I can be a martyr. I don't want, and so this all is it's a very kind of a less stressful way to approach the world. So the ego jumps in here with all kinds of fear, right? And says, well, if you do it, somebody's going to take advantage, or, I'm not going to see where in business, if we're in some kind of business relationship, we think we've got to jockey for position to get the best deal. We've got to, because if we don't watch out for our best interest, then, we're going to get cheated somehow. But if we actually look out for what is the common welfare, what is the best for everyone involved, then yes, it's true that on this one particular deal, I may not make quite as much money as I might have made, but who knows what benefit is established in the relationship when it becomes obvious that what I'm looking for is for the common welfare. And then I don't have an angle. And I'm not playing hardball. And so you say, well, wait a minute. I may never do another deal with that person ever again, so let me get the maximum right now. Minds are joined. And when we start to act in selfish ways, that goes out like a wave out into the world and comes. Just think about the basic little model of, I'm standing in front of a calm pond. I take a rock, I throw it into the pond. It hits and ripples come out. If I watch long enough, I will see that these ripples come back and then close back over where that initial disturbance happened. Every action that we take in the world is just like that. Every action has a reaction. So everything that we do causes ripples to go out and come back. You don't have to believe this if you don't want to, it's fine. I'm just going to present the idea that the pond is within your mind. The pond is within your mind. And when we're operating out of a model that we've got to get everything we can for ourselves, we will always think that we didn't. We will always think that we missed something, that we didn't make, the deal wasn't quite good enough, or the next deal and we will always have those guilty feelings, especially if we feel like we took advantage of someone. That guilt is buried somewhere, and it will come back. So I'm going to say, I'm awake now. I'm awake. I've woken up for a moment. I've smelled God in the kitchen making bacon and eggs. I'm going down to breakfast. And I'm going to interact with the other people at the table. We're going to have loving interaction. And this is just a symbol. This is just a symbol for how I want to see that. First of all, I will talk about the table. I woke up. God has been yelling it's breakfast time for a long time, and I've just been missing it. I'm hungry as I could be, but I still want to stay in bed and sleep, pull the covers over my head. Finally, I woke up to the fact that this is not my world. Is this dark place underneath the blankets where I stay for some weird kind of safety that's not even real. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to join the others at the table. And the table includes everybody. Everybody is at the table. So even the people you don't want to eat breakfast with. Even those who come to your mind right now that you really would rather not see, especially early in the morning. They have to be invited to breakfast too. The problem is if I try to exclude anyone, I exclude myself. So I want to sit down at the table and I want to enjoy that which our Mother, Father, God has cooked for us. I prefer that story to the story of I'm waking up in the morning and I've got to figure out how am I going to get out into the world and get what I've got to get to take care of myself. So the motivation is the only difference. The motivation is the only difference. I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to go out into the world, and I'm going to do what I do. Go to work, go to school, whatever it is. The only thing that has changed is that now, when I go to work, I go to school, what I want to do is I want to give service to those around me. That's the only difference. Knowing, this is why, because I know that as I give service, I receive service. And actually, I get everything else that was the reason that I went. Before awakening, I go to work because they pay me. Yeah, sometimes I have a good day. Go to work because they pay me, but sometimes we have a nice interaction. It's a good day. But I know from my own. This is just me. Maybe you, where you have worked in the past, every day was wonderful and there were no problems and you loved your work. But for me, I had a lot of problems at work, and it's interesting when I look back at it that it was all based on relationships. All the problems based on relationships. And what's the problem? The reason I'm having a problem in a relationship is because I feel separate from this person for whatever reason. Something they said, something I thought they said, something I said, and then they took offense. Whatever is the relationship where I think now that we're separate. I've got to interact with them, got to go to work every day. They're there. I still got to interact with them. So what do? Try to avoid, stay out of their way, go this way, go that way, say as little as possible. This never works out. I told the story before, but it's really important, and it illustrates the experience that I had. I took a job that I didn't want to take. Dan told me not to take the job. Dan told me to we had lost a company that we had for years, and I was offered a job that was a lot of money, and but I also wanted to start a new thing. I wanted to speak. I just wanted to go and speak. I had some programs put together that I wanted to present. I wanted to speak to businesses, and but of course nobody was going to just give me a check every week if I did that, and it was an opportunity to move in that direction, and but I decided to take the money instead. Well, you got a family to take care of. You got responsibilities. There's all these things, all these pressures, and so I took the job, and I only had to go into this office once a week. The rest of the time, I could stay. Well, that's rude. The rest of the time, I could stay in Rockford and do all my work in Rockford. But once a week, I had to go into the corporate office and have this meeting. And in the corporate meeting was not pleasant. The president of the company would come into that meeting and he'd have it would just be attack. He would just go around the room attacking one person after another. It's just putting their shortcomings out there. I used to call it the bloodbath on Tuesday. And it was horrendous what was going on. Now, at first, his attack never focused on me. But I remember that I would be so offended because I would never, I was in his position before, and I would look at it and I would make a judgment. You can tell it's a judgment when you say, I would never do something like that, okay? And I would watch his behavior and I would say, I would never do so, I would never act, I would never say that, I would never treat my people this way. And so, by the way, that's not helpful. It's a comfort to the ego, but it's not helpful. So I would go in and experience this whole thing and just watch this terrible interaction, judging it the whole time. And then I would get in the car, and on my way back to Rockford, I would call my wife and recount the story and tell her how awful it was and how terrible this guy was. I don't know what he's thinking about and he's ruining the business and all of this kind of stuff. And I actually would get more upset recounting the tale than I did when I was sitting in the meeting. So this is just an example of you get into a situation where where you're interacting with other people, you start to make judgments, and then you want to go tell other people about how bad they are. Well, I'm not saying that now look, I'm not in denial of the fact that he really was not very, very nice to the people that he worked with. But he was in misery. It was obvious that he was in misery. But because I picked up on it and carried it with me, I was in misery. And I would think about, when it started to get close to Tuesday, I would start to think about how horrible this experience was going to be on Tuesday. And sure enough, it was. And then I made this decision. I decided I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, look, by that time, I've been practicing the course for many years. I actually was, at this point, I had a church. I was doing what I'm doing right now, but I was still going through this stuff, and I made a decision that I'm going into that meeting with this change of motivation. I'm not going into that meeting worried about what's going to happen to me or what I'm going to have to listen to or anything like that. From now on, I'm going into the meeting and I'm going to extend love. And I'm going to allow myself to be guided by the Holy Spirit. And I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to go to the president of the company and tell him, you need to be more loving in your business meeting. That's just going to be offensive, and he's not even going to know what the heck I'm talking about. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to begin to go in there and extend love. The most amazing thing happened.